Are you the type of person that wants to try photography as a hobby, but you just don't know what to take photos of? Or are you already killing it, but you just don't know how to start a photography project? And I myself actually was one of those people. I took photos for years, but I just didn't know how to put together a project. So don't worry, in this video we'll go through how to put together a photography project. Hopefully, step by step, I'll give you some tips and I'll give you some guidelines and maybe some food for thought to your new photography project. Roll the intro. Psych! We don't have one. Okay, so although there's no definitive way of, creating a photography project and approaching one, I'll try to make this as simplified as possible. I'll give you two big frameworks, let's just call them, to tackle photography projects. So we'll go through two approaches to photography projects. The first one being taking photos specifically for a project. And the second one will be taking a wide array of photos and compiling them later in order to create a project. Oh, this is getting too hot, I'm sorry. I think for the first approach that we're going to be talking about, it's good to have things a little bit more narrowed down. Like, geographically, it can be something local, or thematically, it can be something that is kind of personal, or it can be something that digs a little bit deeper into social context. I think a good example of this would be Sleeping by the Mississippi by Alec Soth. Sleeping by the Mississippi is a book that Alec Soth made. What he did was he made a number of trips along the Mississippi River and documented things that were happening, documented the people that were living around that area. And I guess the idea behind this was that the Mississippi River has contributed so much to American history that I think going along it is kind of like a small trip to pastime America. And what Alec Soth did was, he documented what was going on along that river. So in that example, there is a geographic location that's more local than America or the United States. It's the Mississippi River, which is in the United States, but it's a little bit more, again, local and narrowed down. In projects like these, it's sometimes even good to have no base knowledge at all and kind of document what's going on as you see it. Another way of approaching this archetype of project building, which is, taking photos specifically for a certain project, is you can think of something like sentiment, which is maybe like a feeling. For this more thematic approach to this archetype, what you can do is you can choose a geographical area that kind of represents what you're going for, or it can be more personal. You can think of a sentiment or a feeling that is closely tied in with how you feel or how you are as a person, and then try to document that going forward as a project. I think a really good example of this is actually coronavirus shots, or, coronavirus-related projects. What happened in this situation was that most photographers, or even all photographers in the world, were kind of forced into their homes or their hometown. So they had no choice, or we had no choice, but to document things that were happening within that realm. So we universally had something to work with. The theme was the virus or the pandemic and people staying at home or being around home, right? But I think what varies is people feel different ways towards this situation. People feel different feelings or sentiments around this. I'll share some of the photos that I took during quarantine in my home. During quarantine, what I felt was I felt trapped in my house. I am generally a candid photographer. I go out to cities or go out to nature to take photos. And when I was forced to stay at home, I felt just dark and kind of dead. But I like colors, so I was wondering how I could kind of play around with that. How can I document colors and this notion of silence and a sense of me giving up to the whole situation? How do I represent that in the photos? That was kind of what I was going for in these photos. And I took these photos through a span of maybe a few weeks, yeah. Okay, then within this approach, once you're done with picking a theme or picking a location, which is hopefully a little bit more narrowed down, we can think of gear options. What kind of camera or what kind of lens or what kind of even film can represent at best the project that we have in mind. The good part about this is because you're planning forward, you can choose gear that might fit that project. Going back to the sleeping by the Mississippi example, Alec Soth chose a large format camera to document what was going on. If you want to capture a wider scope or wider range of elements within the frame to express the background or the whole situation, then maybe wider lenses are good. If you want more detail in the shots because you want to show more dynamic range, more colors, then maybe you can choose something with a bigger digital sensor, or maybe you can choose bigger film types. Or maybe a project that you want to work on has more of like a nostalgic vibe to it. So you want to work on film, or maybe you want to shoot the pictures in black and white. Again, this is just some food for thought, some general maybe tips that you can abide by in order to look for an interesting photography project. Okay, so that was the more narrowed down, plan ahead kind of project approach. In the next archetype or framework, this is more of a taking lots of photos and compiling them later kind of approach. So opposed to planning ahead, you are taking photos and seeing certain things within those photos and trying to form projects around what you've already taken. At first listen, this type of project sounds easy to kind of tackle, and I think a lot of people create projects around this method too. But not a problem, but kind of a bottleneck that I noticed with this is you need a lot of images, and you need a lot of good images in order to do this. Okay, let's go through this a little bit more. For this, the scope is a little bit wider, let's say. As opposed to the previous archetype or framework, it's good to have this kind of leeway to work with. So maybe geographically, the theme can be about a whole country. Now, there are a lot of photography books revolving around certain countries, but I think a good example of this might be Pinkhassov's book, Sightwalk. Basically, what Pinkhassov does in this book is he documents Tokyo, and that's pretty much it. He just documents it in his own way. But the book is amazing because he is consistent and he is just that good of an artist. Going back to the difficulties of this archetype or framework, I think you need some kind of consistent subject matter or some kind of consistent method of visual storytelling. This can be executed by maybe looking specifically at color, maybe even black and white. Maybe it's focused more on complex compositions of people within the frame, or it can be about buildings, or it can be about nature. But again, yes, you need some kind of consistency there within this wide scope of a project. Another way you can approach this is by thinking of some kind of social, economic, or political theme, or sustainability related themes. But again, yeah, I think this approach can be a pain sometimes because you need to be shooting kind of like a wide array of things in order to choose certain projects from archives. For example, you can be a landscape photographer, but you can be an occasional home documentary family photographer. But maybe in order to create a project around those home archives, you just didn't have enough pictures. And also that limits you to the photos that you've already taken in the past. So I'll try to summarize this for you guys. The first approach, or the framework that I explained, was more about planning a project forward, taking photos, then kind of understanding the situation in more of a neutral manner. The latter approach or framework that I explained of choosing projects from mainly your archives is that you're looking back, you're sorting the photographs that you've taken in the past, and you're kind of composing opinions or composing kind of your thought around the photographs that you've made. So it's more reflective. But in the end, what I want to say is that you can mix these two approaches actually. For example, I've created projects where I looked back at a long span of my photographs and noticed some kind of ongoing theme. I liked the pictures that I was getting from that theme, so I decided to kind of build upon that idea a little bit more. I think I had like a base of maybe like 5 to 10 photographs that I really liked. So I started going to specific areas, or I started kind of looking for photographs that kind of fit that project. Another book that I kind of wanted to introduce in this video is A book that isn't really relative or doesn't really fit into both of the frameworks that I've introduced. It's kind of like a mixture of them, actually. The book is called The Creation by Ernst Haas. And what Ernst Haas did in this book, it's kind of like a visual representation or a conceptualization of the creation, as in from the Bible. So in the beginning, he literally has some quotes from Genesis. So the book is divided into 3, I think, sections, and it's the elements, the seasons, and the creatures. So yeah, it's kind of like this grandiose depiction of a big important section of the Bible, and it definitely has that power and energy that kind of is represented in Genesis. But again, just to clarify, I'm creating this video because I just wanted to create kind of like a guideline or framework of thinking for people that are really lost. Okay, cool. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this video helped some of you guys. If any of you have photography projects that you're already working on, please let me know in the comments below. If you watch this video and you've thought of certain photography projects, then also comment below. If you enjoyed this video and thought it was helpful, leave a like, and hopefully you can subscribe to my channel. Thanks guys for watching. This was Ulysses Zelki, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Sayonara.